Okay, Rabbi said before we start the sugya of Hatmono, which I really want to start today, which is a gewaldige sugya, very, very exciting, very negay, practical sugya. I just want to mention something from yesterday, Ben. Okay, very important to mention from yesterday. It's very possible, I haven't checked it 100%, but it could be, I didn't listen to the recording yesterday, but it could be that I mentioned something which I think might have been a mistake yesterday, the Gabbat Svardim. I think I was a bit too mekel. So we're going to change a few things around today. It could be like this. I don't remember exactly what we said. According to Svardim, adding water into the cholent on Shabbos Kodesh, if it's burning, if it's drying out, whatever. So if I remember correctly, I think that I said that you could take the cholent pot itself and put it under the spout, because you can't use a klisheni. So it was brought to my attention, Chacham HaSayag, it was brought to my attention that it could be even that, according to many Sfardim, is problematic, because Chacham Ovadia Yosef held that Iroi, right, Iroi, we've spoken about Iroi, it's when it gets poured, it immediately cools down, loses its temperature, and therefore is still subject to bishul, and therefore cannot be added to your chulant. Which means they asked Rav Ovadia, so what are you meant to do? Lemaisa, Asvar de Shahai Legayid. What's he meant to do to add water to the chulant on Shabbos Kodesh if it's drying out? What's the eitzah? What's that? You're right. Okay, chamin, not chulant. It's like an oxymoron. It doesn't work. Okay, chamin, right? By the way, there are some svarim that eat chulant. They understand. So what do you do? So Rav Ovadia Duvi says the following thing. Listen to this gavaldige eitzah. Moedik eitzah. The eitzah goes like this. Erev Shabbos, fill up a bag of water. Of cold water, Erev Shabbos. Tie a knot in it. It's mamish secure. Heat resistant bag. Put it into the chulant. Rest it on the top of the chulant. Sits there. Beautiful. If on Shabbos morning, or whenever, you find that your chulant is burning, you have a problem. Take a knife and pop the bag. And then all the water comes out. And this way you're good. This way, this is Gavaldik. According to Rav Ovadia, you can add water to the Shabbos Kodesh. Aaron, yeah? Good? Gavaldik. Let me go invite Rabbi Sai. Okay? Levi, yeah? Okay. Let's begin, Rabbi Sai, a Gavaldik sugya of Hatmono. Let's begin Hatmono, but we'll begin like this. Let's understand, where does Hatmono come from? What's pshat in Hatmono? Now, the word Hatmono obviously means insulating, right? Rafal, insulating. Many of us, without even knowing, insulate things on Shabbos Kodesh. Where did it come from? So the Gemara in Shabbos Lamadallah tells us that, and you have to remember, in the olden days as well, they didn't all have their own private ovens. Like, it's not like nowadays we're living in a rich generation, everybody has their own oven. Is there anybody here in their house that doesn't have their own private oven in their own house? Is there anybody? I don't think so, right? Everybody has an oven in their home. We're living in a rich generation. It didn't always have to be that way. Sometimes, in the olden days, they didn't have their own ovens. They had a communal oven. They had a communal oven that everyone would take their pot on Friday afternoon, morning, whenever it would be, and would take it into the communal oven, heat it up, it would become hot. Now they need to take it home, because they need to eat hot food on Shabbos Kodesh, right? So Rafal, what do? Eli, what do? They took the pot from the communal oven, they wrapped it up, insulating it, so it stays hot for the rest of a few hours, till Friday night meal, till Shabbos day meal, whatever it is, and then they would eat it. That was one of the reasons, one of the ways they used to do Hatmono. Now it's negay nowadays. It's negay to so many different things. Let me just give you a couple of examples, and then we'll delve straight into the halacha. Let's delve into the halacha, but let me give you a few halachas. Negay number one. David, you with me? Very important. Very negay shaila. You ever saw that someone takes the challah from the oven? They like nice hot warm challah by Shabbos Kodesh. So you take the challah, Ali, from the oven, and you put it under the challah decal. No one knows what that is? Livey. Yeah? Reuven, you know what that is, right? Yeah? What is it? Mailach.
Challah cover.
The challah cover. Okay, fine. English. The challah cover. Thank you for the art scroll. Gavaldik. So there we are. Rabbi Sai, you took the challah, you put it you cover it with something. Is that Hatmono? Is that Hatmono? People do this, right? Is that Hatmono? Let's say, for example, very negative, I've had this shayla before by somebody, is let's say you're going to your neighbor, your brother-in-law, your mother-in-law, whatever it is for Shabbos to eat, and your wife made a tray of chicken. Now, you want to take that tray and bring it to your brother-in-law, your mother-in-law, whatever it may be down the street, but you don't want it to get cold, so you're going to wrap it in a towel, and then you're going to take it to the house. Is that allowed? Is that Hatmono? Let's say, for example, you want to heat up a schnitzel. on Shabbos, Kodesh. But you want to heat it up, obviously in a mutter oifen. How do you do that? On top of the urn. Top of the urn. Say it on top of the urn. So I'm going to cover it with foil, aluminum foil. Right? I'll wrap it around just to make sure it doesn't get dirty, whatever. Put it on top of the Shabbos urn. Is that Hatmono? What if someone's, their chicken soup, for example, right? Sometimes you have chicken soup that's a bowl and a plate underneath it. And somebody went to the bathroom, whatever it was. So you want to make it nice, you want to keep it warm for him. So you take the plate underneath the soup and you put it on top of the bowl. This way it stays warm for a bit longer. Is that Hatmono? Rabbi said there's many shailas, and obviously we can't even leave out the most important one which we have to get to, is obviously the crockpot shaila. That's the biggest Hatmono shaila that exists in Bisman Hazeh, is the shaila of a crockpot. Is that Hatmono? Is it not Hatmono? How is it not Hatmono? We're going to talk a lot about that, Be'ez Hashem. Okay, but the basic idea is Hatmono means insulating. Insulating for the purpose of keeping something warm, keeping something hot. Now, let me explain, Rabbi Isai, very clearly. There are two types of Hatmono. There's Hatmono, which what the Gemara in Shabbos Lamed calls Hatmono with a moisiv hevel, something that positively increases heat. And there's Hatmono with a enoi moisiv hevel, something that doesn't positively increase heat, but it keeps the heat status quo. Good? Asha, is that clear? Two types of Hatmono. There's Hatmono b'moisiv hevel. That's when you're adding heat, making it more hotter. Or Hatmono with an eina moisiv hevel. That means I'm not making it hotter, I'm just keeping it in the temperature that it is for as long as I possibly can. Okay? Now, let's go one by one and explain them very clearly. Moisiv hevel. The din of a moisiv hevel, the Gemara in Shabbos tells us very clearly, is as a gzeira that you will stoke the coals. Meaning, we have a problem that if you're doing Hatmono with a moisiv hevel, then it's a chashash that you may come to stoke the coals. Therefore, it is osa even on Erev Shabbos. This is an interesting one. This is not osa on Shabbos. This is osa even on Friday morning. That means, whatever we're going to define as moisiv hevel, Hatmono, is going to be osa 11 o'clock in the morning on a Friday morning. You can't do it. Whatever is called Hatmono with a moisiv hevel, will be also on Erev Shabbos. Why? Because there's always a chashash of Shema Yechata, Gecholim. You're going to be going stoke the coals, which is obviously Mave, which is an Issa making fire on Shabbos Kodesh. And that's the reason why it is Asa even on Erev Shabbos. If it was done and you have it on Shabbos Kodesh, immediately remove the wrapping, because you have to get rid of the chashash. And the chashash is cold zman. You have the heat, they have the insulation around. We're worried. Let me give you some examples, very practical examples. David, ready? These are the most practical examples of things I'm sure many of us use in our kitchens at home that are called moisiv hevel. Okay, these are about very practical. These are the examples, okay? These are things that all of us use in our homes, in our kitchens, as a moisiv hevel, and it's going to be a problem. It's called Hatmono, the moisiv hevel. What are those things? Listen carefully to the most practical list ever. Again, we use this all the time. Salt, peat, lime, sand, wet cotton, wet grass, wet straw, manure, refuse of olives and grapes, and wet cotton wool. These are the normal things that all of us use in our homes when we want to do Hatmono, right? Right? It's a normal thing to do. You want to do Hatmono, you take, a bunch of old olives or something and you wrap it around your pot. So that's what they did at Bisman Chazal, Laivi. Now, I want to tell you an interesting fact, by the way. This is a true fact. When you walk in Eretz Yisrael, you get a mitzvah. It's moedik. But leave that for a moment. When you walk in Eretz Yisrael, you see garbage houses. You ever saw this before? Outside apartment buildings? You see like a mini house, like a stone thing, and something's got an air vent, whatever, and people put the garbage bins, the big huge things, green things are in there, people put their garbage there, close the door. It's like a mini house, right? In some places they've converted it into a machsan for a shoe shop, or they've done for a barber, whatever it is. If they can get away with it, they'll do that. But otherwise it's used as garbage. I want to give you a challenge, Rabbi Isai. During the winter, when it's full, walk into one of those. It's going to be nice and warm. What's pshat? Well, you don't have to walk in there, but you can take my word for it, Eli, okay? You can take my word for it. The ma'aser you walk in, it's warm. What's the pshat? Because many of the things that we chuck out and put in the garbage are what we call moisiv hevel. They generate heat. And therefore, that's what the Gemara is talking about. Now, you'll tell me it's not negay nowadays. So I'll tell you it's very negay nowadays. Let me give you one example, and again we'll talk about the halacha and nafkaminas as we go on and continue to explain the shurim. Let me give you halacha l'maisa. When do we do Hatmono with a moisiv hevel, which is also at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Friday morning? What would be, anybody know an example, by the way? Anybody? I mean, every single one of us could do this every single week. Hello? Nobody. Wow. Ben. Anybody? David? No. Is anybody there? You know the people in the camera think that I'm actually talking to nobody. They think I'm in an empty base medrash and I'm just like randomly calling names like, oh, you see, I found the raya. I found the raya. There's nobody there answering. Okay, in a minute maybe we'll turn it around. Do a 360. No. Okay. Okay. Let's go. Ooh, okay. I don't want to get to crockpots if you don't mind, simply because I want to explain crockpots. But I want to talk about a very simple one. Let's say, for example, you have your chicken soup on the hot plate on Erev Shabbos, and you wrap it around with a towel to really cause it that it's hot. Okay? I'll give you an example. A fella calls me from Toronto. It's a little bit cold sometimes in Toronto. I've been there in the winter. It's pretty cold, right? It's cold, no? At Montreal. It's not that much warmer in Montreal than Toronto. So somebody called me with the following shaila. In a shul in Toronto, I think it was, they had made for the Shabbos urn a special cozy cover, right? Nice little blanket, which was made to measure, and it fits directly onto the urn because it's so cold by the shul area where they have it. It's not in their homes, it's in the shul, which is like outdoors, and they were worried that the cold outside would have such a hashpah on the urn that the heat on the, heating up the water inside wouldn't be enough to make the whole water hot. Was that allowed or not? Right, so it's basically the same shayla as what we're going to tell you right now. If you have a pot of chicken soup, Davy, on the hot plate, on Friday morning, and you wrap it around with a towel, on Friday morning, and you leave it that way, you have been over on Hatmono with a moisif hevel, which is also afil on Erev Shabbos. Why? Because, true, the towel is not being moisif hevel. A towel doesn't generate heat. When you wrap a towel around something, it keeps the heat in the same way. It keeps it status quo, at least as long as it can. But the hot plate underneath it is causing it to get hotter and hotter. That's a moisif hevel. Zug the Rosh, which we'll get to, Be'ez Hashem. When I have something insulated, even if it's insulated with an Eina moisif hevel, but if it's on a source of heat, that's Hatmono with a moisif hevel, which also I feel in Erev Shabbos. So you have to be very, very careful with your crock pots, with your chicken soups, with anything on the fire, that you don't insulate it on Friday morning, because that's Hatmono with the moisif hevel, which could even be also to eat on Shabbos Kodesh. Let's continue, just because, again, I don't want to go too much involved in halachas. I want to give you the Hakdama today, and tomorrow, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to get into the actual halachas with an again. And that is, now let's move on to Eina moisif hevel. Eina moisif hevel means that you're insulating something with something that does not positively add heat. It keeps the heat in the same situation that it is. I'll give you just some examples that fall into this category in case you have these things in your kitchen handy. Make sure you don't use these things. And that is dry straw, dry grass, not wet, dry cotton, not wet, paper, foil, feathers, and towels. All of these things are called an Eino Moisiv Hevel. Why? They don't positively add heat. They just keep the heat in the situation that it is for as long as possible. Now, since the chashash over here is, then when you do hatmona with an Eino Moisiv Hevel, you will come to heat up the food. Why? Because you're about to wrap it in something that's going to keep it as hot as long as possible. So right before I wrap it, I want to make sure that what? I've heated up the food as much as I can. That if you do hatmona with an Eino Moisiv Hevel, you may come to heat up the food, cook, bishul, before you wrap it. It's only a chashash on Shabbos Kodesh. And therefore, Erev Shabbos, Hatmono with an Eino Moisiv Hevel is going to be mutter. Which means wrapping it around with a towel, not on a source of heat, just to keep it warm for a couple of hours, would be okay. It's an Eino Moisiv Hevel. And therefore, an Eino Moisiv Hevel is mutter on Erev Shabbos. It's only asa on Shabbos. Because on Shabbos we have the chashash of bishul right before you do that Hatmona. Is everybody, Davey, are you with me? Is this clear? Ellie? With me? Okay, good. I can say one name and a bunch of people like, oh, it's great. Gavaldik, beautiful. Baruch Hashem. Okay, now, I have an interesting question. Does Hatmona apply by a lid? Are you allowed to close a lid of a pot? Or is that considered to be Hatmona? Because so why do people close the lid of pots? To keep it warm, to keep it hot, to keep this, as much as they can. That's not called Hatmona. We're going to learn, Be'ez Hashem, that Hatmona means a second layer apart from the pot itself. To cover something with a normal way of covering it, we'll see, is okay. To go above and beyond that, that's going to be problematic. Okay? Rabbi say, the Hatmona is also, even if it's fully cooked, even if it's stomach viraloi, which means further cooking is detrimental to it, fully cooked is asa. Doesn't make a difference what stage it is. It's not like shihia or chazara, which makes enough communion where it's cooked. Hatmono is always asa. Rabbi said, we'll end with this, and that is, there are 4 conditions that you need. You will not find this when you learn clear-cut simulation and zayin, which is the sugi of Hatmono. There are 4 main conditions of Hatmono. In order to have an issa of Hatmono, I need all these 4 conditions to be present, and then it's asa. And we'll go through them one by one tomorrow. Number 1. It has to be Hatmono Lagamri, completely insulated. We'll explain. Number 2, it has to be in a kli rishon, not a kli sheni. We'll explain. Number 3, it has to be my kavona to insulate it, not stam. We'll explain. And for number 4, noga b'kdeira, the wrapping or the covering has to touch the actual food or pot. A lot of this we'll discuss tomorrow. Mitzvah tomorrow we're going to go through many, many details and practical shilas of Hatmono. Halacha l'maisa. Have a wonderful and beautiful day.